The crystalline spires of the Galactic Senate Chamber pierced the artificial sky of Zentaris Prime, their surfaces alive with holographic displays that trembled with each urgent transmission. Alien dignitaries from 1,000 worlds clustered in heated debate, their varied forms casting strange shadows as they gestured toward the central projector. There, suspended in three-dimensional light, hung an image that defied everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. A battleship, massive, angular, utterly foreign, drifted at the edge of the Outer Rim territories, like a steel mountain waiting to avalanche. The Empire had ruled unopposed for 10 millennia, their fleets crushing every species that dared resist. Yet no commander in the chamber recognized this vessel's design. Its hull was crude, blocky, terrifyingly functional, nothing like the elegant curves of Imperial engineering or the organic flows of their conquered subjects. Technology. Fleet Admiral Korvax, forearms spread wide in dismissive gesture, his scaled hide rippling with contempt as he addressed the assembly. Impossible, he hissed through translator nodes. No known species builds ships this massive. Perhaps a rogue Imperial faction. But even as he spoke, the scanners revealed something that made his blood freeze. Strange markings etched deep into the alien metal. Symbols that matched archives from a species the Empire had long forgotten. Human Terran. The word spread through the chamber like a virus, whispered in a dozen languages, each more incredulous than the last. Panic began to bloom in the senators' eyes as they recalled the primitives, who had barely crawled beyond their homeworld, the weak mammals dismissed as frontier curiosities. The chamber darkened as if in response to their fear, emergency lighting casting blood-red shadows as the human ship powered up its systems. Its energy signature eclipsed an entire Imperial battle group, readings so high they broke the measuring instruments. Across the galaxy, emergency broadcasts pierced through entertainment channels and commercial networks, leaking classified footage despite military censorship, on mining worlds and pleasure planets, in orbital habitats and underground colonies. Billions of beings watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded before their eyes. The image burned itself into collective memory, a human warship that dwarfed their greatest vessels, hanging in space like a monument to their own ignorance. Children pressed against viewing screens, while adults whispered in languages the Empire had tried to erase. The humans survived. Some remembered the old stories, fragments of history from before the conquest, when Earth's colonies had vanished overnight, retreating into the darkness between stars. The Empire had assumed them extinct, another failed experiment in galactic civilization. But now those assumptions crumbled like ancient stone. The reconnaissance squadron approached with the confidence of apex predators, their destroyer-class vessels gleaming with polished armor and bristling with weapons that had shattered planetary defenses. Against the human battleship, they looked like insects approaching a sleeping giant. Admiral Korvax's voice crackled through space. "Unknown vessel. Identify yourself and submit to Imperial authority." Silence answered him, not the silence of fear, but of judgment delayed. The human ship's engines hummed with barely contained power, harmonics that seemed to vibrate through subspace itself. Then, without warning, physics screamed in protest as the massive vessel accelerated forward with impossible speed, moving like a predator that had finished stalking its prey. The first destroyer simply ceased to exist, torn apart by a kinetic barrage that treated armor plating like paper. The second vanished in a blinding flash that left after images burned into every sensor array within a light year. The ship's designation flickered across Imperial scanners like an epitaph. UNS Valiant. In the depths of the vessel, Captain Sarah Chen stood before tactical displays that painted the galaxy in stark mathematics of power and position. Her dark eyes held no mercy as she watched the retreating survivors scatter like frightened birds. Behind her, the bridge crew worked with mechanical precision, humans who had spent generations preparing for this moment. The Empire had made a simple error. They had confused withdrawal with defeat, silence with submission. When first contact had gone badly centuries ago, when diplomacy had failed and Earth's colonies had been marked for absorption, humanity had not fought a hopeless war. They had done something far more dangerous. They had learned, while the Empire grew fat on conquered worlds, humans had retreated to hidden systems, built forge worlds around captured black holes, and pushed technology beyond the barriers that limited their enemies. In the Imperial capital, emergency sessions convened as reports flooded in from across the Rim territories. Human colonies were revealing themselves like stars emerging from behind an eclipse. Massive installations that had been hidden for generations, now blazing with activity. industrial megastructures that dwarfed anything in Imperial space. Fleets assembling in numbers that made seasoned generals pale with recognition of their own obsolescence. The Emperor himself paced his private chambers, his advisors too terrified to approach, as he studied tactical projections that painted humanity's emergence in spreading fire across the galactic map. How had they built so much in secret? How had the Empire's vast intelligence networks failed so completely? The answer was as humbling as it was terrifying. Humans had simply been better at the game they thought only they knew how to play. The full Imperial fleet deployment was magnificent in its arrogance 100 warships, surrounding the Valiant like wolves, circling a lone elk. Plasma batteries charged with the power to crack moons, shields that had withstood the fury of dying suns. Crews trained since birth for galactic dominance. Admiral Korvac himself commanded the assault from the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, a vessel whose very name had ended 1,000 wars. As the barrage began, space itself seemed to catch fire. Energies that could sterilize worlds focused on the single human ship. But the Valiant's shields absorbed the onslaught like a mountain enduring rain, their technology so far advanced that Imperial weapons seemed like primitive clubs against modern armor. When the human ship returned fire, reality bent around railgun slugs that moved at significant fractions of light speed, each shot precisely calculated to find the gaps in Imperial defenses that their own computers had never known existed. The Eternal Dominion and the Valiant faced each other across a space graveyard of lesser vessels. Titans preparing for a battle that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of power. Imperial broadcasters declared the human anomaly would be erased, their propaganda machines working overtime to maintain the illusion of inevitable victory. But, in the depths of both ships, those who understood war knew they were witnessing something unprecedented. The Imperial dreadnought fired with the accumulated fury of 10,000 years of conquest. Weapons that had leveled civilizations, striking the human vessel with enough force to shatter continents. The Valiant staggered, armor plating blown away to reveal the complex systems beneath. But it did not fall. Instead, it revealed its own secreted dark matter lance that sliced through space itself, bypassing every known form of defense to core the Imperial flagship like a blade through flesh. The explosion that followed could be seen from neighboring star systems, a funeral pyre for an empire's pride. As survivors limped away from the battlefield, their testimonies spread through the galaxy faster than their damaged ships could flee. On worlds that had never known defeat, citizens watched their invincible protectors retreat from a single human vessel. Underground resistance networks that had survived generations of oppression suddenly had a name to rally behind, a symbol that the impossible could become inevitable. Children who had grown up believing the Empire eternal now whispered new bedtime stories about humanity rising from the darkness between stars. The Valiant broadcast its message on every frequency, in every language, its words carrying across space with the weight of prophecy. We are humanity. We do not kneel. The galaxy held its breath as new signals bloomed across the star charts. Hidden human colonies revealing themselves like flowers opening to sunlight. Industrial complexes that had been forging weapons in the void. Fleets that had been building in the spaces between mapped systems. Earth itself appeared on long-range sensors for the first time in centuries. Its blue oceans and green forests now surrounded by orbital shipyards that churned out vessels beyond Imperial comprehension. The Emperor stared at his strategic displays as hundreds of new contacts appeared, each one a nail in his empire's coffin. In his private chambers, surrounded by the art of 1,000 conquered worlds, he whispered the question that would haunt his final days. It cannot be a human empire. The future had arrived wearing the face of humanity's patient revenge, and the galaxy would never be the same.